Good evening, everyone. I'll just give a few moments for people to join, and then we will go right into the lesson. Hello, good evening, good evening. Good evening, good evening. Hi, babe. Thanks for joining. Okay, so I won't stay on long. We're starting about 10 minutes late. I wanted to give out an announcement to remind everybody to join class. And so this will be my second wife class Wednesday that I'm doing on Instagram. Usually I do them on Facebook in a private group, but the Lord's kind of compelled me to do it live on Instagram, where I have most of my followers. So I hope that you guys, if you were with me last week, that you enjoyed the life class. Well, the wife class. I'm sorry, I have a life class. The wife class last week when we talked about relationship revelations from the book of Ruth, and now we're shifting to relationship revelations from the book of Esther. And so for those who did not get a chance to hear the message last week, it is available on YouTube. Unfortunately, literally, the enemy got really busy after I closed out class last week and caused the video not to be able to work. I could not download it. I could not get the audio and video to sync together, and then it just completely shut down on me. So I had to put the audio of the first part on YouTube, and then there's a video of the second part on YouTube. So you could just go to YouTube under Kristy Lyles and put in Wife Class Wednesday, and you can hear last week's message. So this week I wanted to talk from the book of Esther. You know, I'm going from some of my favorite books of the Bible when it comes to relationships, and, you know, kind of expounding on ladies from the Bible and just extracting some revelations to give us some new things to think about concerning not just relationships, but things of a spiritual nature, things that we can work on within ourselves in preparation for marriage. Okay, my wife class is intended to speak to those who desire marriage, those who are literally preparing for marriage and an engagement or a courtship, and those who are already married, because the goal is not just to get married. The goal is to be happily married and to stay married and to have that marriage fulfill a purpose within the kingdom, which we will definitely get into tonight. So if you have your Bibles or are following a Bible app, let's jump right in. I'll try not to go as long as I did the last time. And for everyone who's saying hello. Sometimes I can't really stop and look at all the comments, and to keep myself on track, I kind of just stay focused, but I'm not being rude. So hello to everyone who's speaking. So let's jump right into the book of Esther. Okay, a book that we all know, a very popular, familiar book. We know different scriptures from it, but I really want to start from the beginning pretty much to the end of the book and try to extract as much revelation as possible. And so we're going to start, obviously, in Esther chapter 1. And so just to give a breakdown, because I don't want to go over every little thing and wait and go into too much time, but the beginning of Esther just speaks on King Ahasuerus, or some people call him King Xerxes, and he is having this big feast. He's basically showing everyone in the land his riches and his majesty and all the things that he has acquired as king, and it's been going on for a long time. Okay, I believe it's 120 days or 180 days. Okay, and so during these monthly parties that he's having, he beckons for his wife at the time, the Queen Vashti, which we all know that she neglected to follow the king's command, and she did not come when he called her. Okay, so the king sent his chamberlains to get Queen Vashti, and she refused to come. Now, there are many theological debates on why she refused to come. Some people think she was just being rebellious and disobedient. Others believe that she didn't come because what was really being asked of her was to come in the royal crown, unclothed, so that the king could show her off, and she did not want to be displayed in that way. We're not getting into that because I want to focus on Esther, not Vashti, and so we can get into that another day. But The bottom line is, because she did not obey the command of the king, she was dispelled from the kingdom, and the queendom was taken from her. Now, why is this important? This is important because prior to Esther's arrival, okay, she would never know that all of this is going on in the royal palace, okay, that is making room for her to acquire the position. And so that is important for some of you to know, because while you are single, okay, and this could apply to other things outside of a relationship, but while you are single and you are waiting on God to fulfill your desire of marriage, okay, you have to keep in mind that God is orchestrating things behind the scenes on your behalf to set you up for the divine connection that He has prepared for you. Okay, so you have to keep that in mind, so that when the spirits of impatience or defeat or despair or hopelessness start to set in, you can recognize that while you may not see what God is doing, you may not see how He's moving, there is something going on behind the scenes on your behalf that is making room for your arrival. Okay, so that should encourage you to remember that just because you don't see God moving, okay, that He is working very intently and very strategically on your behalf, because Vashti's removal made room for Esther's arrival. Okay, so let's go into what I do want to focus on. All right, so Vashti has been expelled from the kingdom. All right, and so the king has his chamberlains, he has his advisors basically, who have said, let's do something about this. Let's get a new queen instead of Vashti. Okay, so we're in Esther chapter 2, verse 1. Now it says, "Now after these things, when the wrath of the king was appeased, he remembered Vashti and what she had done and what was decreed. Then said the king's servants," okay, that ministered unto him, "let there be fair young virgins sought for to the house of women unto the custody of Haggai, the king's chamberlain, keeper of the women, and let their things for purification be given them." Okay, so this is already saying a lot. Now, I want to start with this. Chapter 2, verse 1. It says, "After these things, when the wrath of King Ahasuerus was appeased." When the wrath of King Xerxes was appeased. Let's call him Xerxes because it's easier. When his wrath was appeased. Now, some of you have to understand that, and I say this to women all the time, that while you're praying for a mate and praying for a husband, and you're wondering why God has not brought him to you yet, you have to keep in mind that there are two people involved in this divine connection and divine relationship that you are praying for. So while you may think that you are ready and that you are prepared and that you have done everything that would set you in a position to be a wife, you have to keep in mind that the man is involved with this too. And so just because you have not met him yet, you do not know who he is, there are things that God has to appease in him before he presents you to him. Okay, so in this case, King Xerxes says when his wrath was appeased, there are things that are currently being appeased, solidified, healed. There are things that are being broken. There are things that are being with the person that God is intending to be with you. Okay. And so while you're praying and you are frustrated because you think that because you're ready, it should just instantly happen, there is a completely another person that is involved in this, who there are things in this man that need to be appeased. Because if God presents you to him too early, before his anger has been appeased, before his wrath has been appeased, before his bitterness has been appeased, before his brokenness has been appeased, before his lust and things in his flesh have been appeased, God will present you to him prematurely, and then he will not be able to recognize you for who you are. He will not be able to appreciate. He will not be able to reciprocate, because there are things in him that have yet to be appeased. Okay, and this is very similar to what I said when we spoke last week on the book of Ruth, that God put Adam to sleep. Okay, and it was not Eve's job to go to Adam and wake him up too early, because if she had woke him up before God had closed up the womb, then she would have got a man that was broken. Okay. And so there are things in your future king that God is currently delivering him from, healing him from, and appeasing in him so that when you come along, he knows how to receive you in a way he has never received a woman before. Okay. Now somebody says, what if God presented him prematurely? Can you guys get back together? Okay. I think that's a topic that I'll address maybe at the end of class. Okay. I want to stay focused. But what I will say is God is not going to present anyone to you prematurely, because God in his omniscience would never present you something that is premature in his end. What may happen is you may not have been ready. The other person may not be ready. Okay. And so there may be things that we've done that did not allow us to be mature enough to handle what we came across. But I would say that if it is a divine connection, then God will always give you the opportunity for what he intends for you. But I would not say just assume that you were premature and that you need to revisit it, because it's something you should take very seriously when we talk about going back. I believe in moving forward and not going back. Okay. But I don't want to get off track. So just coming from the very beginning, chapter 2, verse 1, when the wrath of King Xerxes was appeased. Okay, so remember, there's a whole man that you have not yet met, or even if it ends up being someone that you knew, God has not revealed him yet as your husband, because there are things in him that are still being appeased. Okay, so then we go down. The servants say that fair young virgins should be sought for him. Okay, and that he should appoint officers in all the provinces, that they can gather together all the fair young virgins to Shushan. Okay, and they say that the things for their purification should be given to them. All right, now this is one of the main points of what I'm going to be talking about, is that when it comes to preparing is directly related to purifying. Okay, because we talk about preparing all the time, and sometimes we're focused on physical preparing and making sure that we look a certain way, so that if our husband comes across, he can see us a certain way. Some of us are doing a lot of financial preparing, which is amazing, because that's going to be important in a marriage. But are you doing emotional and spiritual purifying before? One second, guys. My throat's already closing up, so just pray for me. Are you doing emotional and spiritual purifying before God sends this person to you? Because it's very important. So I want to delve into the purification really deeply today, because that is a big link to singleness. One second. I hope you guys are praying. I haven't coughed all day, and now suddenly my throat is closing up. All right, so let's go into deeper parts of the story. So we talked about King Ahasuerus, his wrath being appeased. Now we're in verse 3. We're in Esther chapter 2, verse 3, and it says, let the things for purification be given to them. Okay, now what is purification? Okay, because what I really want for you ladies is for us not to so much focus on getting someone. I want us to focus on getting ready for someone, because here's the thing. God is in control on when he is going to send this person. God is in control on how he's going to make it happen, when he's going to make it happen, where it's going to make it happen. But what we need to be is prepared. And part of being prepared is being purified. Okay, they weren't going out into the provinces bringing women that were not pure. Now, back in this biblical time, they were only bringing women who were literal virgins. Okay, in that time, and still is one of the epitomes of purification. Okay, and so I'm not saying that you guys have to be literal virgins, but what I am saying is that you need to be in a place of purity, because that is what attracts God to bring things, opportunities, and people to you. Okay, even with Mary, she could be used because she was pure. All right, she could be used because she was not tainted. All right, and so the same goes for you. There is a level of purity and purification that God wants you to go through before he presents a king to you. All right, now what is purification? It is the removal of contaminants. All right, It is the process of extracting something from a substance, the process of extracting. It is also the process, and I love this part of the definition, it is the process of making something spiritually or ceremonially clean. The process of making something spiritually clean. Now, this is the goal that you should have in your singleness. This is the goal that you need to have if you're engaged and even married. You need to always be in a place of desiring purification, okay? Removing contaminants. Now, what does that mean? You need to be removing the contaminants of your mind, of your heart, and of your spirit. The things that have happened to you, the things that have been done to you that have left you contaminated, all right? Because when we are contaminated, we contaminate our relationships. All right. We contaminate our relationships. What I love is that the definition really emphasizes that it is the process of extracting. Now, one of the main things that singles ignore, all right, and I'm not saying this because I was never single. This is something I ignored. Okay. What I ignored was process. Okay. Because process takes time. Process is uncomfortable. Process takes patience, all the things that we don't want to have to do. Okay. Purification means the process of making something spiritually clean. Now, I love this definition because this is a secular definition. This is like a Webster's definition. This is in Greek, Hebrew from the Bible, but even in the secular definition, purification means the process of making something spiritually clean. All right. And so we need to be mentally clean, emotionally clean, and spiritually clean before we go to God praying for a husband, before we go to God praying for a mate. Are we pure, or are we bringing all of this contamination with us? That's just going to contaminate the entire relationship, contaminate the man. Because here's the thing, ladies, we always act as though the men are the ones that come and damage us and ruin us and destroy us and break us and hurt us. Okay. But there are things and unhealthy mindsets. There is broken emotionality. There's weak spirituality, all these things that we are bringing to them as well. And the thing about a man, let's think of it in terms of even King Xerxes, as we're talking about. He's just getting his wrath appeased. Okay. So the last thing that he needs is a woman coming into his life, provoking anger in him again. All right. And so a man dealing with abandonment is the last thing he needs is for you to come along and trigger those abandonment issues. If a man is dealing with rejection, the last thing he needs for you to do is come along and use those rejection issues against him. Okay, so when we come into the relationship, we have to be honest and assess ourselves and say, am I a contaminant? All right, do I contaminate everything that I touch? All right. Does every man that you've been with feel like you are overly jealous, insecure, too possessive, that nothing they do is good enough, that you have all these trust issues, that they have to work so hard for you to believe them on anything? Is nothing they do ever good enough? Okay. Are you contaminating them because of your emotional woundedness or because of your spiritual weakness? All right. And so we have to be willing to go through purification. All right, the process of making something spiritually clean. So being spiritually clean means that you have to dump out all of these false mindsets, these false theories, these preconceived notions about what God is going to do and how he's going to do it. Because if we're honest, a lot of us are not praying to God, his will be done in our life concerning our relationships. We are going to God and saying, God, I want you to make these specific things happen for me. All right. And if you're not making these specific things happen for me, then you're not answering my prayer. And a lot of times prayers would be answered. Things would manifest if we would stop going to God, telling him what we want and saying, thy will be done in my life. And that includes my romantic life. That includes my romantic future. Okay. So purify me. Spiritually, mentally, emotionally. Let me take out every preconceived notion. Let me take out of this invisible husband that I've had in my mind for years on what I thought he would be, what I thought he would look like, or how I thought he would dress, where I thought he would work. Take all of those things out and empty yourself, clean slate in your mind and in your heart, and say, Lord, I don't have any preferences. Whatever you think is best for me, thy will be done. All right. And you will always get God to move quicker. All right. When you release and surrender your will Okay, because we think we can go to school and choose our majors, and we can decide which, house we want to buy, and we can decide which cars we want to get, and all these different things. Okay, but when it comes to a romantic relationship that's leading to marriage, a covenant, that is the area where you would want to surrender the selection process to God, right? So we need to be purified. So let's get into Esther. All right, let's get into Esther. So let's go to Esther 2 and 6. All right. All right. Well, let's go from Esther 2 and 5. Now it says, now in Shushan the palace, there was a certain Jew whose name was Mordecai, the son of Jair, the son of Shimei, the son of Kish, a Benjamite, all right, who had been carried away from Jerusalem with the captivity, which had been carried away with Jeconiah, king of Judah, whom Nebuchadnezzar, the king of Babylon, had carried away. All right. And he brought up Hadassah, that is Esther, his uncle's daughter, which means they're cousins, for she had neither father nor mother, whom Mordecai, when her father and mother were dead, took for his own daughter. All right. So we just read Esther verses 5 through 7. Now, why is this important? Okay. And I like to extract from, I know you may say, well, why is she reading those verses? They're insignificant. Okay. But no verse is insignificant. Every word in the Bible has significance. Okay. Now, this verse says that they were carried away from Jerusalem. All right. They were carried away from Jerusalem into Babylon, carried away from Jerusalem into Babylon. Now, why is this significant? Because some of you, if you are honest within yourselves, some of the relationships you have been in, some of the people that you have entertained, some of the things that you are romantically, maybe even sexually involved in, if you are honest with yourself, you have gotten carried away. All right. Or you've met somebody and you guys are getting close. You already kind of know in your spirit they are not the one, and you have gotten carried away. Now, when you get carried away, what does that mean? That means you are going too far. As they say, you're doing the most, or you're being extra. You are getting carried away with fear that you're not going to get someone, fear of being alone, fear that you won't have a marriage, fear that you won't have a happy marriage, fear that you're getting older, fear that you'll never get married, that you'll never have children. And so all these things are causing you to get carried away in the area of romance. It's to the point now that now you are bitter and angry with God. Okay, you're frustrated with your friends. Now you have an attitude. You are just completely changed. You have gotten carried away. Your countenance is falling. You're not the same person because you feel your prayers have been delayed. You feel your prayers have been denied, and you have gotten carried away. All right. And so even if it's a new person that comes along, this may be a man that he has not even gotten to know you long enough to know if you guys should be together in something serious. He doesn't know yet if he should marry you, and you're already pressing him. You're already questioning him. You're already pushing him. You're already panicking, and you have gotten carried away. Now, what happens when you get carried away? You end up being a captive. Okay, you end up in captivity because Babylon represents captivity. They were carried away from Jerusalem and they were captives in Babylon. Babylon represents captivity. And so what happens when we are desperate for a relationship, desperate for love, what happens when we are overly anxious for marriage, what happens when we make marriage an idol, the idol becomes what we are captive to, what we are bound to. It becomes a yoke of bondage. And so some of you have to pray for patience and pray for peace and pray for contentment, okay? So that you will stop getting so carried away in your heart, which keeps leading you to captivity. Now, why do I say it's captivity? Because now let's take, for example, you have been waiting for a while. Now a new guy comes on the scene. You're so invested. You prematurely committed. You are expressing all of these emotions. You're telling people, that you love them way too soon. You're getting involved way too fast. You're not praying. You're not being spiritually led. You're being emotionally driven. Okay. And you are getting carried away. And now that person has you in the palm of their hand. Now that person, if whether they treat you right or not, you're just so attached, okay? Whether they're treating you with respect, you're just so attached, okay? Then it turns into you're no longer paying attention to how they're treating you. Now you just want to be with them. You're clinging to them just to have them. And they are using that as a form of bondage, okay? They are using that as a way to keep you captive. All right. And once someone recognizes this spirit of desperation or this fear, the spirit of fear has an aura to it. OK, so just like they say, dogs can smell fear. OK, desperation, fear of being alone, being with someone with this consuming fear that they may leave you has an aura to it that they can smell in the spirit. Okay. What happens in the spirit realm is you may act like you don't care on the outside. You may try to act like you're strong, independent, this quote unquote, I don't need a man, but you cannot hide things in the spirit. So if you are really operating with a spirit of fear or desperation, other spirits can pick it up because you cannot hide a spirit. Okay. You cannot hide a spirit. So when you get with someone, all right, from this place of bondage because of your desperation and your fear of being alone, they take advantage of that and they keep you captive. Okay, and they know how to pull your strings. So one minute they're telling you that they love you. The next minute they don't know if they want to be together. One minute they're telling you that they want to marry you. The next minute they're telling you that they need space. All the while, okay, you are going back and forth and being yo-yoed, and it is a yoke of bondage around your heart because you cannot free yourself because of this fear of desperation, this fear of being alone, and this desperation that's fueling it. Now, what does captivity mean? It means being imprisoned. It means being enslaved. It means being confined and trapped. It's a form of detention. It's a form of custody. All right. And that's a strong word. This means that someone has you so attached to them. This person has you so willing to bend and to break for them and to lay down your standards, to lay down even your spirituality. Okay. You are in their custody. Okay. And so it says here that they were carried away into captivity to Babylon. And so some of you have gotten emotionally and romantically carried away. All right. And you are in a form of captivity similar to Babylon. Okay. So that's the one thing that I want to extract from that verse. Okay. Now it says in Esther 2:7, all right, that Mordecai brought up Hadassah. That means Esther, all right, his uncle's daughter, so they're cousins, for she had neither father nor mother. Okay. All right. So this is important. Esther had neither father nor mother. Okay. So in other words, she was basically an orphan. Okay. Basically an orphan. And you say, now, why is that significant, Kristy? That doesn't apply to me. I have my parents are in my life. They're this, they're that. Now, for some of us, literally, there may be some of you who do not have father or mother. Either from them passing away, either from them neglecting their responsibility. Sometimes you can have parents, but there's such a distance and wedge there that you feel that you really do not have any parental covering. Okay, but she is an orphan. And even though Mordecai was taking care of her, in technical terms, I'm saying that she was an orphan. Okay, now what is an orphan? Yes, it can mean a child whose parents are no longer with us, but there's another definition for orphan. It says it's a person without protective affiliation. Now think about how important, how powerful that is. An orphan is also a person without protective affiliation. Now, why am I saying that to you? Yes, you may have your mother and father, okay, in the natural, okay, but some of you are operating as spiritual orphans, where you are acting like you have forgotten that God is your father and that he desires good things for you, that it is his good pleasure to bless you, that he is faithful and he will give you the desires of your heart, but you do not trust him as a father. You are acting like a daughter that is a spiritual orphan, where you have forgotten that God is trustworthy and that if he is causing you to be single in this season or unmarried at this particular time, that it is for your good, because the Bible says that he will withhold no good thing from you. Okay. And so if he's withholding it from you, it is not good for you. But because in our own pride and our own arrogance, we think that we know better than God. Okay. We do not see not having someone as a good thing for us right now. All right. So this means you have trust issues with your father. And so what some of you have to remember is you are not an orphan. You have a father. Okay, a godly father, a heavenly father who wants what's best for you, who is very protective of his daughter. And if he sees that it is not time, if he sees that no one is suitable, if he knows that this would be premature, if he knows that you are not yet purged and purified, and he decides in his godly fatherly wisdom that it is still time for you to be alone, then you have to trust him as that father. Okay? All right, because some of you with this definition, a person without protective affiliation, because you do not feel that you are affiliated or associated with anybody who can protect you in the natural, you apply that same perspective to God. All right, but the Bible says that God is not like man that he should lie. All right. So while your natural father may have neglected you, or your natural mother may have neglected you, or if you have been with men who promise to be there and to guard your heart and to protect your heart and to be faithful and to be honest and to be committed, and they have let you down, you have to stop applying those attributes from the flaws of human man to God. Okay, because God is not man. He's not a man that he should lie. So he is going to protect you. And if he sees fit for you to be single right now, if your relationship is a good relationship and is going at a certain pace, but you're getting impatient, if God is withholding it from you, all right, then that means it is for your good. And you have to start trusting him as a father and see him as a protective father, okay, because you are not an orphan. You have a godly father who loves you, who sees you as a daughter that he is very protective of. And anyone coming into your world saying that they want to be with you and they want to have your heart, and you are potentially going to open up your emotions to this, all right, he is going to come down and assess this person and make sure they are ready, that they are pure, that they have good intentions, and that they are suitable for you. All right, so we have to remember that God is your father. So Esther had neither father or mother, but God sent her a cousin, all right, an uncle in the form of Mordecai to represent that protection and that covering in the natural. Okay, so it says she didn't have parents, but then it also says that she was fair and beautiful. Okay, now I'm not talking about in the physical. Of course, we know we should look nice, we should try to keep ourselves up, all those things, wear things that accentuate your beauty. You don't have to look a certain way, but whatever physical way makes you feel that you are at your best. Okay, we all, if we're just honest, we all know when we're slacking and when we're slumming and when we're not up to par. Okay, of course, be physically beautiful, but do you have a beautiful spirit? Okay, because a lot of times what men complain about is a woman's attitude and a woman's mouth. Okay, and the mouth is just the sounding board for the attitude. Okay, because we're only saying what's already in here. Do you have a beautiful spirit? Okay, or do people think that you are nasty? Do people think that you are cold, that you are angry, that you are defensive? Okay, that you are just stoic, and that they, if they say one little thing wrong, that you're ready to snap, all these things. Do you have a beautiful spirit? Okay, because as gorgeous as you may be on the outside, and we spend all this money, getting our hair and nails done. Well, I broke a nail today, so if you notice that, give me some grace. Hair, nails done. We want to get our, our faces beat. We want to have a certain type of wardrobe. We're spending all this money on, Gucci and Chanel and red bottoms and all these different things. And we're investing all of this money into looking good on the outside. Okay, but what good is that if a man can see you and think that you are appealing to his eye, but you're not appeasing to his spirit? Okay, because you do not have a beautiful spirit. You do not have a good attitude. All right. And I know it's hard to hear you and say, well, people have caused this attitude in me. You know, my childhood has caused this attitude. Men have caused this attitude. Broken and failed relationships have caused this attitude. Okay. But that is not an excuse. Okay. Because the one that God is preparing for you has not done these things to you. So he does not deserve that nasty spirit, that coldness, that attitude that I don't need a man, but yet you're still praying for a man. You can't contradict yourself. If you want God to bring you someone, you have to have a welcoming spirit. Okay. It's no different than you going over someone's house and then they act like they don't want you to be there. You do not feel welcome. And so your inclination is to leave with the mindset that I'm not going to stay where I'm not wanted. Okay. And so it's the same thing for a man. If you continue to have this attitude that you don't need them, okay, and that they can't tell you nothing, they can't teach you nothing, you know, they're not going to quote unquote control you. Okay. There's a difference between someone trying to control you and someone trying to lead you. So you can't pray for this leader. You can't pray for someone that you can lean on, that can take charge and then not give him the reins. Okay. Because if the attitude is, I don't need him, if the attitude is, you know, making him feel as though he's not wanted, then a man has a right to say, well, I don't have to stay where I'm not wanted either. Okay, so it goes both ways. So it says that Esther was fair and beautiful. And so you check your spirit to make sure that you are operating with a beautiful spirit. Now, I don't know how much time I have. I try to keep slight track so that it won't get cut off, and I'm probably almost there, and I'm not even remotely all the way into my notes yet, but we'll just go as long as however it takes. Okay. All right. So it says that she was fair and beautiful, and Mordecai took her as his own daughter. Okay. So let's go into some things about Esther. It says that her name was Hadassah. Okay, Hadassah, that was her Hebrew name. Okay, Esther being her Persian or Babylonian name. Okay, now what does Hadassah mean? It actually means myrtle tree. Myrtle tree. Okay, now that may seem weird, but let's look at what the myrtle tree and things of the myrtle tree represent. It represents something that they use to make essential oil that could be used as an antiseptic, an astringent, a deodorant, an expectorant, and a sedative. Okay, now this is getting a little bit deep. You may say that doesn't matter, but all of these things matter because there's a lot in a name. Okay, there's a lot in a name. For instance, my name is Kristy. It literally means Christian. It means a follower of Christ. And I see that to be very true in my life. Okay, now Hadassah means myrtle tree, and the myrtle tree was used to make essential oils, and the leaves and things were used as an antiseptic. Okay, as an astringent. All right, now when you're hearing these words, think about what comes to your mind. An antiseptic, okay, helps with infections. Astringent means that it's something that can close up wounds. It tightens the pores. It tightens the skin. A deodorant, obviously that means that it's something that deodorizes, that it takes something that smells awful, okay, and it causes it to be neutralized, okay. It's an expectorant. If you've ever had a cold and you're doing a lot of coughing, you usually get medicines that have an expectorant. It gets out the phlegm, okay. And then a sedative, things that calm you down, things that help to put you to sleep. So now why am I saying all these things? These are the things that Esther represented, or Hadassah represented, because this is what the myrtle tree represents. Okay, her being an antiseptic means something that gets out bacteria. It means that as a woman, there should be something in you that when a man comes along and you see a bacteria and infection, that whatever has entered him through his wounds, you know how to apply something that aids to his healing. Okay, and an antiseptic. Can you be an antiseptic to a man? Can you be what helps him heal his wounds? Now, I'm not saying it's your responsibility to heal him completely, because that is God's job. That is something that only God can do. But can you be something that he can apply to his life that can aid in his healing? All right. An astringent. Okay, it's something that tightens up the skin. All right, tightens up the pores. You know, we use astringents on our faces to make our pores smaller. It draws out impurities, okay, and it closes up things that have been wounded, open wounds, okay. Can you be an astringent to a man? All right. Can you see the wound and help him close it up? Can you be that thing that draws out his impurities, draws out the things that the devil would love to keep hidden and buried in who he is? Your job is to speak to him and speak life to him in such a way that it draws the impurity out. Okay, so he has abandonment issues, anger issues, rejection issues. Your job is to be that astringent in his life to say, okay, you know what? I love you. God loves you. You don't have to be angry anymore. You don't have to be wounded anymore. You don't have to be hurt anymore. You're no longer rejected because the Lord has accepted you and embraced you and adopted you. I love you and accept you, and help him close up those wounds. Okay, that bitterness, that pride, you are to be able to speak to him and encourage him in such a way that you can draw out those impurities. Okay, the things that the devil would love to stay hidden. Okay, because men have egos, so it's very hard for them sometimes to admit that these things are festering on the inside and it is killing them internally. And so you need to be able to bring a peace to a man, and he needs to trust you enough. And I taught about being a trustworthy woman extensively in wife classes, because the Bible says in Proverbs that the heart of her husband doth safely trust in her. But a man is not going to reveal his wounds if he cannot trust you. All right. So can you be an astringent? Can you be a deodorant, a deodorizer to a man? That foul attitude. Okay, that stank attitude that he may have, all these things, because when you get married, all right, when you get married, you're not just going to see the great sides of your man. You're going to see the good, the bad, and the ugly. So those things that are causing him to have a foul attitude, can you come in and, like a good deodorizer, neutralize his attitude, neutralize his spirit, and bring him to a place of pleasantness? Okay, can you be an expectorant? All right. Like I said, an expectorant is something that opens up the breathing, okay, and to get mucus out. All right. When you have a cold, you can either get a cough suppressant or you can get an expectorant. What is the difference? The cough suppressant is just going to suppress the cough. It's not going to eliminate the cough. Okay, an expectorant is something that goes in and it causes it to be soft enough. And I know this sounds nasty, but it causes the phlegm to soften enough to get it out completely. All right. So when you get married, your job is not to come along and be a suppressant to a man. Okay. Your job is to come in and lovingly be an expectorant to a man. All right. That means you see something and your job is not to pacify it, enable the things that are hurting him and let him be the way that is killing him and his destiny. Your job is to be an encourager to the point where it's an expectorant and say, okay, babe, I know you've been operating like that for a long time, but here I am. We're going to get through this together. But it's some things that you got to get up out of you. All right. It's time for healing. It's time for deliverance. It's time for wholeness. It's time to put those childish things away. All right. Yes. The key word is lovingly, not demanding this, not criticizing him, not preaching to him, to do it lovingly. And we're going to talk about delivery and presentation as I go further with Esther, because she was a great example of how to approach a king. All right. But your job is to be an expectorant. And if you can lovingly do this and he can trust you enough to let him in his heart, when you're in that heart, you can survey things and you can observe things and pinpoint with your discernment what needs to be pulled out. All right. And then the last thing is we're talking about Hadassah, and it meaning myrtle tree. All right. And one of the aspects of myrtle is that it is a sedative. Okay. Now, a sedative means to make calm, to put at ease. Okay. To relax, to put to sleep. Okay. And so your job is to be a sedative to a man, to your husband, something that when he's riled up, when he's angry, when he's anxious, okay, when he's fearful, because men do have fears, okay, when he's worried and he's concerned and he is thinking about how am I going to keep the household together? How am I going to raise the money? How am I going to be a provider? How am I going to be a priest and a prophet and a protector to my wife and to my children? When he's thinking about all these things and they're overwhelming him, your job is to come in and be a sedative, a relaxer, okay, a tension reliever, okay? All right, a sedative, to be his peace. to cause him to be at rest. Those are the things that Hadassah means. Okay. And so that was Esther's Hebrew name. Okay. So let's keep going down. We talked about her not having a father and mother. We talked about her being fair and beautiful. This means that you are no longer an orphan, that you have a spiritual father. You have a godly father that's protecting you, that you are aiming to have a beautiful spirit, that like the name Hadassah means myrtle tree, that you are to be something that a man can put in his life, apply to his life as an antiseptic, as an astringent, as a deodorizer, as an expectorant, and as a sedative. Okay, a sedative. All right, so let's keep going. So now we're going to Esther 2 and 8. So basically they gather all the young virgins together and Esther is included. All right. And in Esther 2 and 8, okay, it says that Esther was brought into the king's house to the custody of Haggai. All right. The custody of Haggai, who was a eunuch. All right. And he's a eunuch, meaning that he's been castrated. So he doesn't have functions down there in his sexual parts, and they used eunuchs so that they kings would not have to worry about the people that they kept over the women, you know, being sexual with them and things of that nature. Okay, so he was a eunuch and his name was Haggai. All right, and I think it's significant that Haggai means to be suitable, fit, and worthy. All right. So I think it's very significant that the Lord allowed Esther to be under the custody of someone whose name means suitable, fit, and worthy. Because what does this mean? This means that the Lord attached her to somebody who was going to teach her how to be suitable for a king, how to be fit for the palace, how to be worthy to be chosen. Okay. All right. And so then in Esther 2 and 9, she is given the things for purification. All right. And it says that Esther obtained favor from Haggai and he put her in a preferred place of the palace. Okay, so she didn't just get into the palace, she got into a preferred place in the palace, okay, to the best place, all right, of the palace. All right. And so what does this mean for you? That when it is your time and your season and you come into the presence of your soon to be king, all right, you don't have to worry about what place you are going to have in his life. You don't have to compare yourself to the other women that may be around him. That God is going to give you favor to where you have the preferred place in his heart. You have the best place in his heart. Okay. So you don't have to worry about, let's say your husband is a minister or a pastor, or he's a businessman, whatever he is, and he has to be around a lot of women, because let's keep in mind when we're reading the book of Esther, all right, Esther is the one that gets chosen, but there were a large group of women, all right, that were in the same situation as her because no one had been chosen yet. Okay, so in other words, there was a lot of competition. But when it is a divine connection and God is working behind it, you will get the preferred place in a man's heart. You will be preserved for the best place in his heart, the best of who he is. You will be the one to get his attention. So very early on, Esther has favor and she is getting in the preferred place. She is getting in the best place. So there's no need for the competition and to be fearful of all the options around a king. When he is anointed to be your king, you will get the preferred place in his heart. All right. Now it says in Esther 2 and 10 that Esther had not yet showed her nationality. All right. It was not yet made known that she was Jewish. Okay. And so this is very important because it's important for you not to reveal every part of yourself too soon when a divine connection is being made. That's a mistake that a lot of us make in romantic relationships, is that we reveal ourselves too soon. And I wrote very extensively in my book, Dating with Discernment, that one thing about a counterfeit, all right, when it comes to a counterfeit, they will let you pour out information. They will let you tell all about yourself. They will let you go down the list of how guys hurt you and, you know, what you've been through, that you've been cheated on, that this has happened and that happened. And they will let you pour out all the information about yourself, all right, to analyze it and mirror everything that you're discussing back to you. So you say, you know, on the first couple of dates, it's really important to me that a man be faithful because my last man cheated on me. And so I'm very serious about commitment, faithfulness, and honesty and blah, 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 blah. Or I like this, or I go to church all the time, so I'm into this. They will analyze everything that you are saying to them to mirror it back to you. With you not knowing, that's not even the truth of who they are, okay? But you are giving them so much information, all right? All they have to do is take their notes and then mirror it back to you, all right? So there has to be some mystery and there has to be a divine leading, okay, on when you are to reveal the next layer of yourself to someone that has potential, okay? So be very cautious on revealing yourself too soon, all right? And so Mordecai tells her, don't reveal your nationality yet. And so she was being obedient to that. And it's very similar to when we talked about Naomi with Ruth. She said, do not show yourself to the man. Do not yet make yourself known to the man, because there is a divine timing for these things. So I think I just got a notice that I need to possibly stop now and start again, so that the video will not cut off. All right. So I don't want it to cut off while I'm still in the middle of talking. So we'll end on this note. I'm just going to end the video and come right back so that we continue. And please, please, guys, I promise I won't keep you too much longer, but rejoin with me as I close this out and we start the next video. I will save this, guys. Be praying that it saves and that there's no technical difficulties. And I'll come right back so that we can jump. So the last note is that Esther had not yet made herself known. And so it's important that you pace yourself when it comes to how much you're revealing a potential partner. Okay, so come right back on and I'll be back in just a couple of seconds. All right. Oops. It's not letting me in, guys. Maybe it's a divine sign. Oh.